All right, welcome back. So I have completed, as I said, the flat wash, and it's still drying. And a reminder: just put it off to the side and let it air dry. Don't put anything on top of it because you'll mess it up. All right, so for my next one, the graded wash and the variegated wash, we're going to do one at a time. Well, let's start with the graded wash. A graded wash is different from a flat wash in that it gradually goes from a purer color to a less pure color, and more white paper shows through as you go downward. So it gradates, it gradually changes. That's what it means by graded. It gradates or gradually changes. And once again, I'm going to use green for this one on this one. But notice I've also mixed up some blue because when we get to the bottom one, I'm going to have two colors run together. It's going to be a graded wash of green and a graded wash of blue. And where they meet up, they turn into a third color. All right. So once again, make sure you have a a container for cleaning your brush and a container of clean water for putting water down and for mixing up your colors. So I'm cleaning out my brush, tapping out the extra, and we're going to do one at a time. We're doing the graded wash first, all right? So just below the label, apply water to the surface like we did before. I've got my colors all ready to go, and that's the very first step. Always make sure your colors are into the tray lid and ready to go before you put water down. Otherwise, the water on the paper will dry before you get to before you're ready to start applying the pigment. And please stop before you get to the fold of the paper so that this color doesn't run into that color. All right. Clean out my brush again because I might have picked up some of the pigment. I'm sorry, some of the pastel. Don't overbrush. You'll damage your pastel lines. Now I tap out the extra and I'm just going to pick up the pigment that I've already pre-mixed for myself into my brush, and I'm going to do 2 strokes, maybe 3 strokes with the pigment that's in my brush. I'm done. I don't add any more, right? But I'm not cleaning out my brush. I'm tapping it out, and I just keep using what's still in my brush, and I brush down toward the bottom. Notice that it's pure here and gradually gets lighter, whiter paper. And I can force it to move downhill to make it a more gradual change. Okay, I can go from side to side so it fills in a little bit. I can go from bottom to top so it goes more back to the top again. And if it's still a little bit less than green at the top, I can always come back in with a little bit of the pure stuff without going there. And I can go back in at the top with some of the pure and just apply it while it's still wet. If it's still wet, it's still workable. You don't want to do this after it dries. All right? If it starts drying on you, you don't want to keep brushing. Okay? And I'm going to tilt it back so it goes back to the top again. So it gradually changes from pure green to more white paper showing. That's a graded wash. Okay? Now while that's drying, I'm going to clean up some of this water that's around it so I don't keep picking up more water. Clean out your brush really well. You might even need to clean your water container between colors just to make sure that you don't have colors meeting up where you don't want them to be. I've got my blue and my green already set to go, so I want to put water on my paper again to do a wash. Remember, you need water on the paper to wash your pigments, just like you're taking a bath. You're washing it. And I'm stopping a little bit below, just a little bit above the bottom of the paper so that I have a place to hold it where it's dry. And I started below the label, right? Don't overbrush. Just put water down. I'm going to, because I want to have a difference between the green here and the green here, I'm going to, first off, I'm going to let that run back down on itself again. There we go. All right, so I'm going to put blue here to start myself off. Wiping up a little of the white paper. So I'm getting as much of the water out of my brush as possible. I'm going to tap it out a little bit more. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up the blue. It's a beautiful blue. And I'm doing a graded wash about half of the distance down from the label. Right? Clean out my brush really well. And I'm now going to pick up my green. And you know what? I want to put a little more green into that pot. There we go. Make it a little bit less watery and a little bit more green. All right, you can see the blue's already running back toward itself, right? So it's darker blue here, lighter blue there. And I'm going to start at the bottom now, and I'm not adding more pigment to my brush, and I'm going right up to where the blue stopped. Okay. Now you might want to let this one dry before you do this one, because now we're going to have them both tilting while wet, right? And you want to be careful not to let this run into that. So now I tilt it and I let the green run into the blue and the blue run into the green. And that change is the vary, right? It's called variegated because it changes or varies from one color to a new color. And where they meet up, they could be streaky or it could be a gradual blend. And all of that, you know, that's all personal choice. What do you want it to do? Do you want it to be just a nice gradual change like there, or do you want it to run one into another in a streak and make it, you know, streaks of color like you might see in a variegated plant leaf? So that's entirely up to me, right? As the artist, I just tell the paint what I want it to do, and I manipulate it to make it do that for my own personal choices. Okay, see those changes that are happening there, and right in there. All right, that's part of the process, and that's what we're trying to achieve with a variegated wash. It changes from one color to another. With a graded wash, this one I'm going to let it run downhill, so I'm keeping this one flat. That's one of the reasons why we folded the paper instead of just drew a line. All right, so now it went back downhill again, and it's greener here than it is there, right? But I still was watching what was happening in this area. So that's your other two choices for this project. You can have a flat wash in places like we did with this practice, and it's still drying, right? Or you can do a graded wash or a variegated wash. Variegated washes are great for like the surface of the pumpkin and maybe even the sky, whereas a graded wash would go maybe in the ground or something like that. You could do a flat wash in the ground or in the sky without a change in color. So it's all personal choice how you want to make it work for this project. All right. So now that you've got your flat wash, your graded wash, and your variegated wash, you want to let them stay flat and let them dry so that you can pick them up and move them around without messing them up. So find a place where you can leave them flat and let them dry just as they are. And you want to clean this all up. Here's a tip. This you can lift out carefully from the tray, and you can take this to the sink in your kitchen or your bathroom, and you can wash it with running water, and then you can use a cloth towel or a paper towel to dry it. Dump your waters out and clean out your brushes. When you're cleaning your brush, you want to just kind of swish it around in the dirty water, but then run it under running water. Last thing about brushes, never do this. Never go like this to flatten them out again, or because it feels good. All that does is it pulls the bristles out of the ferrule and makes them fall out when you start painting. You don't want to be stroking the brush bristles at all, okay? So you just tap them out when you're done rinsing them out, and you let them air dry too. That's it. When you're all done, we'll talk about the practice pumpkin.